So, I feel like I was a few months back when I was falling asleep relatively early, catching myself snoring, not feeling so weird or so tired. I don't know, man. It's like these days run together. The last 2 months was like the last 2 days. It's kind of weird how fast time is going by so quickly. And so, yeah, we had like, 40-something tornadoes, 60-something tornadoes. We've surpassed the last record of tornadoes within, a month or something in Ohio. I'm just like, yeah. And then so with all these storms that are going on, then you see people dropping like flies. People getting diagnosable conditions, and you see a resurgence, and people get out of remission in their cancers and whatever. I mean, and it's happening all over the world. Weather warfare, yeah, okay. Brazil is underwater. Texas is underwater. Right now, the South is underwater, sort of, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess you could be like, pretend everything is great. I mean, it's interesting watching people on Facebook post what they post. It's not even like, oh, go post something about the war. Yeah, people are just like, oh, look, everything is normal in my world. Look, everything is great. It's a trip to watch people on Facebook. But that's the thing. The devil, the demons haven't reached their doorstep. They've been privileged with ignorance. I'm telling you, ignorance is bliss until it's not. And I really see that statement holds so much truth. That ignorance is bliss until it's not. Because once you become knowledgeable of the world that you live in, you're not going to be posting all the bullshit you'd be posting on your Facebook. But hey, that's what they want to do. Whatever, that's fine. It just trips me out to see that. Because I know how bad it is. People are like, well, I can't do anything about it, so why should I just be like in misery and all that? No, it's not even being in misery. I'll tell you though, when you are influencing people with all of your beautiful foods and beautiful this and beautiful that, and they're under this false sense that everything is normal when it's not, that's how you perpetuate the fantasy. That's people to keep people under the influence, hypnotized. See, so there's like the positive, negative, right? The pessimist is the parachute, and the optimist is the airplane. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of airplanes all over my Facebook, right? And yeah, they don't realize that the plane's gonna fucking crash. But hey, they're not willing to give their friends and family a parachute. They're just saying, here, come fly this plane with me. Even though the engine's sputtering and there's hardly any gas in the engine, and what else? That the parts are wearing thin, and they're like, hey, yeah, let's fly the airplane together, but yeah, let's throw away the parachutes. We don't need a parachute. We'll just crash and burn, and everything is great, but we'll just crash and burn. That's when I kind of see all these optimists all over my Facebook. They're just like all about love and light and pleasure and paradise. I'm like, God damn, I see that airplane gonna crash someday, and it's gonna be fucking brutal for them and the people around them. But hey, that's their choice to fly an airplane that's eventually gonna crash. But you can't tell them anything. That's the trick. So I just say what I say, and I observe, and I don't say any names. Okay, that's my strategy in giving people another option out there, is that I don't confront them. I don't try to change them. But I observe and I report my observations without ramming my information down anyone's throat. Because you all have a choice. I don't care what the fuck you do. If you don't like what I have to say, block and delete me. So yeah, it was cold last night. I mean, I saw it was getting cold, 65 degrees when I went to bed. And I'm like, it's chilly, but hey, I like sleeping in cold weather because it's nice. And it became all the way down to 62 degrees. I'm like, it's a little bit chillier, but I was also awake. I was blowing my nose. And the cold, yes, can probably do that. Yes, bring on types of mucus and all that stuff. That's why when people go outside, their nose runs when it's cold outside. And so since I'm not keeping up on my thermostat, that when it reaches a certain temperature, the heater kicks on, I just live with the climate change. because I know it's going to be hot at some point. I'll just put on more clothes, but I will have to deal with the body going through an immunological response, but I have the capacity to do that. I have air, food, and water. I can release the demons, though I didn't release any demons this morning, but I was blowing my nose up here. So that's good. And then eventually I'll eat food today at some point. Probably spaghetti and whatever else. So it is cold outside. It is 49 degrees outside, and it is 62 degrees in my house. And so if I'm blowing my nose, right? And I hear other people, their dogs have infection. They have to go get an abscess operated on and removed. Other people are getting a resurgence in their cancers. Other people are trying to fast so they don't feel their disease. And their friends are telling them, oh yeah, you got to fast for at least 9 days. The person's just like feeling tortured. But what she's doing is obviously she's allowing the body to cannibalize itself. Like she's going into ketosis. Ketosis is deadly, especially in this environment. So all the ketosis people who don't want to feel anything are causing each other to deteriorate even more so because they can't handle pain and suffering. And so it's almost like a humane way to allow people to die at their own hand by their own choice. Is it really humane? Well, if you are okay with suffering to die and you have all the support around you and you feel supported in your suffering to die, the system can't say anything. They're not going to say anything. It's those that suffer to live that have to figure out how they're going to survive the people around them who are telling them, don't eat the food, here's the herb, take the medication, go get an operation, So those that are suffering to live have to really fight those that are suffering to die, because people who are suffering to die will try to treat them at every turn. Okay? And so right after all these tornadoes that we've had such a slew of them in Ohio, Illinois, all the 13 states that were part of the eclipse that Jim Cantori was involved with. Remember, he came out to Indiana, Indiana Speedway, to go and observe the eclipse. That was a mass ritual to let you know that there's going to be a lot more shit going on. And now I even see in the 916, where I used to live, Sacramento, officers dying suddenly. Thoughts and prayers. He died suddenly, cardiac arrest. People are like, what's the cause of death? Cardiac arrest, natural causes. He was so young. Well, no shit. And so before the tornadoes, it was over 80 degrees. So it's cold right now, 62 degrees. I'm feeling good. It was like over 80 degrees a couple days ago. So when you see that huge swing in the temperatures, up or down, you know shit's going to go on. Whether it's the climate, like tornadoes and hurricanes and storms and rain, a lot of rain the last couple days. But there's going to be people with immunological resurgences. There's going to be a lot of growth. A lot of things waking up in people's bodies. So do you know what happens when the extreme temperatures collide? Explosions. But tornadoes are controlled explosions. So you've seen that in the sky where it looks like a mushroom cloud, right? You've seen that with the weather people. They post so many pictures. Well, they figured out through the hydrogen bomb, atomic bombs, whatever, back in 1942, 5, whatever, that you can make a mushroom cloud in the atmosphere. Particle acceleration, just putting elements together and causing a mushroom cloud. Okay? But tornadoes are controlled explosions, and they also affect your immune system because you're not independent of the environment. So that's almost like, that's basically ultra low frequency. When you think about what's going on, it's ULF. That's the hidden hand. That's the catalyst that people are not aware of. That's the algebra. That's solving for X is ULF. Things that you can't hear, that you can't even feel unless you feel it in your immune system, but you blame it on something else. So back in 1945 or 1940 something, when they had the atomic bombs, that was like high frequency, but that was major high frequency that annihilated everything on the outside, stuff that you could see. But right now we have ultra low frequency. It's annihilating people on the inside. It's waking up shit. Growth is what causes people right now to go into diagnosable conditions because they're not releasing. The system has constricted their blood vessels, their alimentary canal, through the medicines, through all the herbs, through all the mitigation diets. Watch all your friends and family try to stop disease from coming to surface. And so do you know what happens when extreme temperatures collide? Explosions. But tornadoes are controlled explosions, and they also affect your immune system because you're not independent of the environment. You are part of the environment. So when they keep predicting storms, expect someone to drop dead somewhere in your world. And I'm going to be extremely frank. And it might seem like I'm being brutal, but no one's going to say this in your world. No one's going to fucking say it. They can't even make the connections in your world. They're too busy, distracted, or pretending everything is great, or they're under the influence. So that should be a major clue to you. But you can live in denial. That's fine. The temperature has dropped at least 20 plus degrees. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. People are getting a lot of infections, and animals are getting infections or needing to be put down. I've saw 2 animals on my Facebook. One got an infection and had to get operated on almost immediately. The other one had to be put down. But was fighting infection the last couple years when my dog was going through her issues. And I finally put her down. Her dog was getting treated so much that the dog actually became bigger and bigger and bigger because all the infection was stopped up in her. And then infection finally made her suffer so much that you can't treat it. And so she had to put that dog down because she can't afford to keep treating it and go through more suffering. That's what people are left to do. There's nothing left to do except put something down because you can't. How much more fucking torture in the vet system are you going to put your dog under? So people's dogs are getting huger and huger, or they're getting treated to death, or they're dying suddenly. All right, so other humans are seeing things go on top of what is already going on. So you're seeing a compounding of people's issues. They already have disease and cancer and things like that, and they thought it was under some type of curative state because they were saying, hey, use this cure, use this cure. And then when the climate changes, nope, the cures wear off. They have to get another cure, another operation. That's what you're facing. That's why I'm saying anyone that gets operations now, anyone that does anything that goes under the knife or any kind of curative thing, it's not going to work for very long. It works for a minute until the next fucking storm comes through because we're in climate change. Before, when the climate was relatively stable and you had at least 6 months in between major climate change, between hot and cold, okay, the cures would be like great for 6 months or so until then, then either you had to up the medication or go on another one if that one was not enough for you to keep things under control. But people are not even getting the relief even for like 6 months because every fucking week the climate keeps changing. Do you get what's going on now? Or is that, I don't know. People are weird. And so when they keep predicting storms, expect someone to drop dead somewhere in your world. Or at least get a diagnosable condition, or you keep upping your medication until you drop dead. Okay, that should be a major clue to you. So, I was feeling it the last 2 weeks. My husband, in his way, was also feeling stuff, releasing stuff. So were his coworkers. Okay? So even his coworkers are feeling stuff, but his coworkers are a bunch of men who probably are shitting their brains out right now. But they have enough substance to them because they're men. They're not constantly evolving or having a bunch of children. Yeah, they might be releasing demons and shit, semen, whatever. But, men have more of a survivability if they're not so far gone or behind the 8 ball that they're able to withstand stuff. When you look at my husband and I, he's hardly felt anything. He felt stuff, but he's hardly feeling really anything. I mean, he's pooping, and he is getting gray. So the climate change is making him gray, but he's able to release the demons on his back end. But if he were to open up this side of it, he would have the ear infections because that's what he had to deal with way back when he was a kid. Eventually, when you want to finally actually activate your immune system, you're going to have to feel the things that you put to sleep or was put at bay even when you're a child. So it's revisiting the past, but also surviving the past and then rebuilding as you're releasing. But my husband is so hardy. He has strong fucking bones. He was raised on meat, milk, cheese, eggs, and whatever. He has such strength. And that's why the system over here, the tornadoes and all that stuff and the inclement weather is so brutal here. And it's only a little bit brutal over there in California because anything here would annihilate Californians who are doing organic and doing the yoga. And all they're doing is vegan and vegetarian. So there's not enough amino acids, not enough dense substance, dense proteins to help them convert the energy. Shit, they're on gluten-free diets in California. They're on sugar-free, salt-free, gluten-free, meat-free. I mean, it's insane what goes on in California. But that's California. So Californians couldn't handle this. And if I came right now from California, right now, today, coming here, I wouldn't survive this environment. I'd be dead by now. If I came here 3 years ago under this type of climate change, I'd be dead by now. It has taken me 7 years to build up the conditioning for what is going on right now. 7 fucking years. And I came from a deficit. My husband, he's deteriorating slowly, but he has enough substance to be able to do that and still live his lifestyle of hunting and fishing and going to work. I mean, he might take a day off here and there because of pooping, but that's pretty much it. Maybe his back hurts every so often and all that, but it's manageable because he doesn't treat his disease so much. And as far as I know, he hasn't had any operations. I'll tell you, once you get the operations, that's even more that you have to revisit. And right now, people who get an operation are getting sepsis from their operations. They're getting poisoning from the operation because the reason why is because the body is producing antibodies that needs to be released, and the body needs the food, the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, but they have to release. But people don't want to feel the high blood pressure because that's the body, that's the POTS. See, I was in a diet supplement group and they were talking about POTS, and I've heard that term before. It's a type of tachyardia. And it's like heart palpitations, and it also is coupled with headaches and fainting and dizziness and all that. I remember when I was a kid and I was at the hospital because I remember some kind of sickness coming on. I didn't fall from the monkey bars like they thought. They thought I had a concussion. No, it was some kind of immunological response to maybe potentially all the VHCC-INESs that I received coming to America, as well as the climate change, as well as being part of a diverse community that I probably hasn't assimilated to all, right off the bat. So that assimilation process in body, mind, and spirit was an aggressive process that then caused me to feel major headache. It was a major neurological headache that I had, and I was dizzy, and I probably had heart palpitations. I don't remember that. What I remember from that was being at the hospital and having a major headache and then trying to walk towards Dr. David, which was my doctor at the time, and it was at El Camino Hospital in California. And I remember trying to toddle to him because I was so dizzy. So yeah, I can imagine that's what's going on right now with people with this climate change, along with all the different therapies and with their lifestyle and with all the other remedies that they're taking. They're experiencing tachyardia. So when I experience tachyardia, which they're saying it's mostly a juvenile or adolescent disease, it's happening to 30-year-olds, it's happening to 50-year-olds. But when I feel the heart palpitations, I just go to sleep. I feed the energy because that's energy taking up resources in my body that if I don't feed it, then the body is going to cannibalize itself. So I understand physics. The body needs food. It needs meat. It needs milk. It needs cheese. It needs eggs. It needs fruits. It needs vegetables. It needs gluten. It needs sugar. It needs salt. It needs water. It needs rest. Not resistance. It needs everything that you could possibly get your hands on in the food supply. But with all these food allergies people are dealing with, they're starving their body and the body's cannibalizing itself. And so they age quicker and they also die suddenly, or they bring in opposing forces. They bring in competition. What is that? When they're taking their remedies, when they're obviously taking their surgeries too, when they're taking their remedies, herbs and extracts and things that causes then an offspring. Antibiotic, probiotic causes an offspring. It's the whole integers. And so then when you're eating food, you're feeding the offspring inside the body, you're feeding the opposing forces, and you are actually not allowed to live. It's the offspring that are living, but they're also eating up your infrastructure because they're chaotic. See, you're supposed to develop, yes, new stem cells and then mature the adolescent cells and then release the elderly out of your body. But people aren't doing that. They're keeping the elderly in the body, and then they're trying to get rid of the middle child, the 40-year-old, and they're trying to bring on babies. So they're bringing on babies who are immature, the elderly that are dying, putting those two worlds together. It's like the blind leading the blind, and then the actual logic and the life is not allowed to live, and then they die because the kids are not being trained. They're being trained by someone who's dying. That's essentially what's going on in the person's body, is that they're trying to develop new stem cells that really are not being trained. They're chaotic, and then they have the elderly in their body trying to train these kids traditions that are actually deathly. And so what you're trying to do is so when you look at a family that has, a grandma and a daughter and a grandson, you want to keep the daughter alive. The kids need to be matured and need to stay alive and become the daughter and the son, whatever. But the grandma has to go, which is happening now. Grandma's going, kids are going, and maybe the adults who are like me have a chance. Maybe not. Because right now I see a lot of adults aging so quick because the environment has accelerated that quickly, causing energy conversion to the point where the person is aging way beyond than they can even redirect because they can't handle pain and food and air and water. And so anyways, and so it's not a coincidence. All of us are dealing with different infection affecting us based upon our current genetics. Cytokine storms and tornadoes are connected. When the people in your community start dropping like flies, when you start experiencing the people around you affected even more and more, will that be enough for you to wake up on some level and do something different? Okay? I'm not saying become a conspiracy therapist. Now, I said theorist, but then my talk to text said therapist. But that's a Freudian fucking slip because it's true. People use all the articles and being a conspiracy theorist as a therapy to alleviate their own stress. Because that's the only thing they know how to do is just post articles and try to wake up people who have no ability to wake up. Okay? Because they either wake themselves up and take on information and deal with it, or they just are like deer in headlights. When I was in a Die Suddenly group and I posted an article about what was going on with an officer who died suddenly in 916 in Sacramento, and they're like, well, if you're feeling so whatever, why don't you do something about it? And I'm like, well, you can't live people's lives for them. You can't tell them how to fucking live. You can't tell them to do anything. Well, they're like, well, why don't you go and say the cure killed them? Why don't you go and post that? We've been doing that for the last fucking 7, 8, 20 fucking years. Do you know how many things that there people are going to blame whatever the death on? It's not just the therapies that are being proliferated out there, like all the different BACCINESs, but people are blaming the air, the food, the water, the GMO, meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. They're blaming everything. The VACCINESs are just one of probably a trillion things someone's going to blame someone's death on. So it's not going to matter what you tell people as far as what you think is the issue, because they will go to something else and say it was in their genetics. They already had issues. They're too fat. They're too thin. They're too this. They're too that. Their mom had it. Their dad had it. Do you see what you're dealing with? So it's not enough to tell people what you think is the issue. The person actually has to do a behavioral change and even understand science and physics and chemistry. And most people are not even that aware of how physics works with biology. Because even explaining what positive and negative is, and even the logic behind what's said and not said, there's so many concepts that people really have to open their mind up to. And if they're dealing with shit, they're dealing with pain and suffering, and they're distracted, and they're trying to keep up with people around them, they're not going to sit and listen to understand, the theory of relativity. They're not going to sit and listen to the laws of biology, the laws of thermodynamics. They're not going to listen to or even understand the laws of motion. Newton's law. I even had to argue with someone probably 3 years ago when I said, hey, physics has everything to do with fucking chemistry and biology. They're like, no, biology has nothing to do with physics. Biophysics? That's what I'm saying. People are so compartmentalized that no matter what you try to recommend to them, do something or not do something, they have to understand at the micro level what it takes to fucking survive. And that's if you're even open to hearing another storyline. And most people out there are not. And so I just say what I say to get it off my chest and become smarter for myself. It's not going to help anyone else that doesn't have the capacity to understand concepts. It's like talking to a wall. So I just do it for my own fucking, the hell of it, for me, because that's my own development. And maybe somebody else will take, take a look and see, and they can figure out for themselves. But I just do it for me to help me stay alive and to release stress. And so I'm not saying become a conspiracy therapist and start posting articles. I'm not saying stand up and fight, okay? Because you may not have the energy to. I'm saying, will you actually change your behaviors and your lifestyle and look at everything you have done around disease and food and reevaluate? Maybe it's time to take an early retirement. It's okay to take a break It's okay to quit while you're still alive or be worked to death. It's okay to scale down your lifestyle. You can't afford to take care of the world. I hope you survive the proof you need to make a change. It might be someone right next to you that you will have to learn from, and you might even go with them. What do you mean go with them? You might have to die with them because you won't change anyway. You'll just keep blaming someone. Oh my God, my son or my daughter or my husband or wife or my friend or my family or my grandma is dead because of this, this, and this, and this. And so you have someone to blame, though you didn't take the VACCINE, but you think you're home free because you didn't take the VACCINE. You're only eating organic, and you're doing sun gazing and meditation. So you think you're home free, but in actuality, no, you're not home free. You just have something else that you've blamed, and think that person died because of this, and then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's the scapegoating blame game that we have been conditioned to do, so we take ourselves out. And so it sucks that people have to learn that way. But I guess that's what's necessary. I was blowing my nose so much at 3 this morning. That's a lot of growth someone could die from if they were that overridden. Climate change fucks people up. I know I'll be tired later if I just drink some espresso. I know I'll be tired later because I was up at 3 in the morning, but I've given myself the latitude to deal with the fluctuations. You have to set yourself up correctly to survive climate change. Climate change is brutal. Those who have to be on medication, you know for a fact how brutal it is because you keep upping your medication. You keep upping your herbal dosages. You keep upping whatever it is that keeps you relatively pain-free. Because you have to keep treating your disease. Every single time the barometric pressure rises or falls, people's immune systems go haywire and growth happens. They get out of that curative state. That's why you can't get any relief right now. The system is torturing you in different ways. You literally have to find ways to save yourself during this process. Oh yeah, and you will treat yourself to death. That's what the system wants you to do. They want you to buy all the protection in the world. From your friends, your family, from the alternative people, from them. But if you're not going to buy it from them, you'll buy it from your friends who are all about, yes, raising awareness, and they have something to sell you. They have some kind of protection to sell you. Your friends can't protect you from yourself. Your friends can't protect you from the environment. You are the fucking environment. You have to deal with the environment differently. Doesn't mean that you shield yourself. I mean, obviously, you don't walk into an area where there's so many transformers, and when it says, hey, keep your hands off, and you put your hands on it. No, but, you know, everything is relatively okay from the FTC, the EPA, the USDA, the FDA. So I don't put myself in any kind of danger to test the system or tempt fate. So I adapt to what I am around me. I don't go to the bars and tempt fate. I don't walk after midnight and tempt fate. I don't drive really fast, you know, in slow lanes to tempt fate. I figure out what my lifestyle is and adapt to it. But if you are out there like my husband is, then he has to find ways to adapt to his lifestyle. Sometimes it means taking a break. Sometimes it means staying home and staying safe. Sometimes it means shitting your brains out for a day. Sometimes it means that. Okay? And so you literally have to find ways to save yourself during this process. Oh yeah, or you will treat yourself to death. That's what the system wants you to do. They want you to give permission for them to treat you to death, even through your proxies of people trying to save you from the environment or from the New World Order. It doesn't matter what or with. They want you to try to resist the environment and evolution. It will make you leaving this world on your hands, not theirs. So when you're treating your disease and doing every single detox and every single recommendation someone gives you in the diagnosible groups or anything else, the blood is on your own hands, not them. Because they gave you all the warnings, the inserts, the back of the bottle. But even the herbal remedies people are recommending to each other, it's still antibiotic. And it's still pretty influential in this environment. But, you know, if the system doesn't catch you making claims and advertising at such a level where you're so influential, then they're not going to care what you do. If you choose to buy something over the internet because you think it's going to save you, then that's your own fucking choice. At this point, the system doesn't give a shit what you do. So as long as it's not totally overt, like I was 7 years ago. Okay? So don't give them what they want, but some people will. I've chosen not to give the system what they want. I don't have any medical insurance. I don't go to any naturopathic or homeopathic or allopathic medicine. I just eat food and release the demons that I have in my book, and I rest and I sleep and I eat and I just keep expanding my brain. And I'm okay with gaining a little bit of weight. I'm okay with fluctuating. I'm okay with looking like a monster when I need to, and I don't resist anything. I am the environment. I fluctuate with it. Okay? And so don't give them what they want, but you will. I've chosen not to, because I saw the writing on the wall 3 years ago. I knew when the environment changed, where I had to actually evolve my book from the evolution to the Daily Juice Protocol to then what I have now, that's out right now. I knew that we needed all the food. We needed the milk. But see, that's the thing. Back then when I wrote the book, when I wrote this current book, I just discovered how important milk is, how important cream is, how important, obviously, salting your food is, how important gluten is. I'm telling you, I've been living off of spaghetti the last 2 months. When I was PMDDing so much, that's what I was eating, either that or top ramen. I needed the gluten. I needed that energy because the body was using so much energy that it was going into some kind of ketosis. I feel the ketosis when you feel the hunger pangs. That's ketosis. People go through that herxing back when we were doing the holistic stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, you'll deal with stomach pains, you'll deal with hunger pangs, but just ignore them. And that's what we were doing in the beginning. But the climate was different back then, so we could afford to on some level. But that's what happens is when the energy is so aggressive, people go into ketosis. And so when I'm going into that ketosis of feeling the hunger pangs in the middle of the night, I'm in the fucking kitchen eating whatever I can. I'm eating spaghetti. I'm eating tortillas. I'm eating milk, meat, and cheese. I'm just eating everything in the cupboard. Peanut butter and crackers. Because this environment is so aggressive, it's caused people, again, to go in ketosis. And so when I hear people talk about, they're like, I'm on the Atkins diet. I'm going into ketosis. I'm like, you're starving yourself. What's the Atkins diet? That's only eating meat and protein. That's it. Not eating any gluten, not eating any bread, no sugar. And that's what we were on a long time ago. 7 years ago, before climate change. We could afford to because the climate was changing. Everybody was doing it in the holistic world. But now people are going into ketosis and they're aging so aggressively. And so when they do eat gluten and they get all these rashes and they get, their nose is all... It's because the body is trying to release the demons and rebuild. And people don't want to feel that, so they starve themselves. That's what you're seeing out there. That's why everybody's going like food is poison. No, it's not. It's how you look at symptoms. It's how you look at the way the body is trying to release and rebuild. And you need food to do that. You can't fucking build from nothing. You can't make something from nothing. You have to have energy to make energy. You have to have money to make money. I mean, that's why you got the student loans for free, basically, because you had to have something so you can expand your brain. My parents weren't paying for my education. So when I got the student loans, that was then give me an avenue to learn something so I can be a contributing member of society in some way, shape, or form. And who knows what that was going to look like even 20 years ago. All right, so you have to have money to make money. You have to have substance to make substance and convert it and release the old and bring in the new. You can't afford to starve yourself like people are doing. You can't afford to live on herbs. How many people are living on fucking herbs? Smoking cannabis all the time? Living off of herbs that are like in the holistic world, in the natural food section? But they're saying that all food is poison, all food is poison. Because they're buying into those psychological operation campaigns of starvation. And yeah, you can make that connection that the food is making you give symptoms, but that's called life. People can't handle life. They can't handle food. They can't handle air. They can't handle anything. But I saw the writing on the wall 3 years ago. But people didn't believe me. They laughed at me. They said I was stupid. They said once Biden gets out of office and Trump's in office, everything will be back to normal. There is nothing normal going on, even if you think Trump is coming back to office. So he was in office for 4 years. That was just the beginning. That was just the ramping up of what's going on today. There is nothing normal going on. If you think Trump is coming back to office, even if you think Trump is coming back to office, he can't help you stay alive. he could throw money at you and you would spend yourself out of existence. Okay? That's what I'm saying. The more you make, the more you spend. I knew that when my husband's like, well, I want this, I want this, I want this, and you now have to work this. And I'm like, you make enough money for us to live nicely, and that if you needed to cut down, you could cut down. But once I start working and you start working and we're living way up to the margin, mortgaged up the yin-yang, having to keep up an aggressive lifestyle of pleasure and paradise and friends and family, that's when people work themselves to death for their friends or family. And then they start taking care of everybody. And then people feed off that and they suck you dry. And then that's when people die. Is when everyone around them realize that you have something that they want and they start sucking. You're like basically a cow and they're milking the fuck out of you. That's why you don't want to be that much of a target in beauty and in riches. You want to live really minimal so that way you're not attracting the demons, the parasites, right? And I don't mean that even biologically. All right? So money and lower taxes are not the answer because you will spend yourself out of existence. People are killing themselves with their lifestyle and they pretend everything is beautiful until they drop dead. Then it's thoughts and prayers, right? And on to the next person they watch die suddenly or deteriorate. It becomes musical funerals. You know, like musical chairs. When the music stops, everyone tries to steal the chair available. The one that doesn't get the chair is out. That's people fighting to die. It's like they want the chair. Okay, so it can work both ways. The ones that don't make the chair, then they're dead. The ones that do make the chair, they're alive. But it can be the other way around. The ones that grab for the chair are dead. The ones that actually don't make the chair are alive. So it's all on how you want to look at it, okay? But I took it from this point of view. That's people fighting to die. It's like they want the chair. Like the electric chair. That's pretty grim when people fight for their own death. It's really brutal out there. You can't come back from death. The last little bit of energy, right? When we'll be stuck in a loop when you're dead, right? So when people are dying, they're dead in the morgue, they're dead in the hospital, they die at home. People are like saying, I saw a spirit, or saw something, energy rise from them. Yeah, that's their spirit. That's the last little bit of energy. The last hurrah. That is like that last little memory. And we don't know what happens when people actually die. Like they might see a spirit. You might see, I don't know what, even when people see in the videos, they see those apparitions of people, like actual full humans, but not like DNA, but it's just the energy, the electromagnetic energy. And so they see them walking around, but it's like a loop. It's like a loop. And sometimes, I guess, when you look at through the Ghost Adventures and they have those little stick figures that represent a spirit, that sometimes a spirit will actually look at a person when they're sleeping. That's why I don't put any cameras when I'm sleeping, because I can only imagine what's around. But yeah, so some spirits are actually walking around, but they could be so malevolent. They have enough energy, they have enough to be so malevolent that when they die, they haunt those that are weak. They walk around and look for the weak living. And that's why people get tortured by spirits. Because they've already have portals open, not so much your third eye, but portals open that allow them to kind of get in and torture people and make them feel stuff and then see stuff too. And so that's when I was doing the Facebook Lives a couple of years ago and going through the energy conversion, and there was a lot of aggressive energy in the environment. You would see little orbs just like fly by. Some would be a little bit slower, some would be really fast, but I haven't seen them lately. Okay? I haven't seen them. Even this last energy conversion, I haven't felt like there were presence in my room. I haven't seen any orbs. I mean, I do these Facebook Lives almost every day. And so you would think that during these times that I would, like the last few weeks, that you would see major orbs, but I haven't. But, you know, I don't want to speak too soon. Okay, but that's the thing, is when people are going through energy conversions and they have portals open, the spirits do come in and out, and sometimes they develop into cancer, disease, chronic illness, and also bad behaviors. Okay? And so that last little bit of energy will be stuck in a loop when you're dead. And maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe once the world scales down on the living, The dead can enjoy the beautiful nature. Maybe that's paradise. The living will enjoy nature with the dead, and nothing is encroaching upon somebody else. Okay, so when the system clears out all the different people in the middle of each human population zone, the dead can roam free, whatever that means. Because you might, let's say there was a bunch of houses, like those houses that were taken away by the tornado, and maybe some people died, so their spirit is still living there. And so they clear out all that. They say, okay, we're not going to rebuild here. So that's all done. They let life come back. And so that spirit is still stuck in that little area where the house used to be. And so they'll watch over time, if you do time-lapse photography, watch that area grow and change based upon the climate and whatever's going on. And so the dead can watch things, they can watch life go by. I mean, that's literally what I think happens. Until somebody comes out with their little stuff and they start speaking to the dead, and then the dead is still traumatized, and so they can zap the energy and disperse even that energy. And so then there's no more suffering. They basically, like what I said, paranormal oncology, and they disperse the energy. And so it goes off into the universe to then one day, who knows, be reborn somewhere else again, but they don't have the same memories. It's just a tiny little memory that won't be as influential unless it turns into a virus and becomes influential. And then that's where the whole reincarnation happens, if there's a spirit that's that influential and happens to be inside another human and take over. And that's all the allegory. But you can see how that works with all the different viruses. Those are little hydra with memories, people's memories, that if it was that influential, it can develop an entity, which you then see in tumors and cancers and teratomas and different growths, and even sometimes in organs. Like I watched a preview of a movie on Netflix I was considering watching, but I don't really want to. It's called Chambers, where she takes a transplant of another human, and she puts in herself, but that transplant, that heart belonged to a killer, and then she took on the characteristics of the person who had the heart prior. Yeah, when you're taking on a transplant, you don't really know what you're getting, who it is, what their background is. That's the scary thing of taking on other human body parts. You're taking on spirits that you don't know what kind of that's in them and what they're. Yeah, that's why I don't believe in the transplants. I don't believe in any of the VACCINESs. People do whatever, fine. I don't believe in anything in the medical system or the holistic system. If I'm around people, their energy comes at me, I process it, release the demons, and put down safe boundaries. And I don't get too addicted to the company or want to have too much company, but I treat people like I treat anything. We all have boundaries, and we exchange information, and then we don't get too influential in anyone's life, because then you have a habit of taking over, or they try to take over you. And so, because it's always an opportunity, if someone feels like you have something they want, regardless, it becomes a fight to the death. Even though it's all about love, it's still a fight to the death. It's microbial, though. And so when the system clears out all the different people in the middle of each human population zone, the dead can roam free, even in their little loop that they developed from their last life, unless they are strong enough to take over an animal, and that animal can take over a human in the future. But I don't think it works that way. But maybe you never know. Remember, it's like the what do you call it? The nesting dolls. Okay, there's a little doll that nests in a bigger doll, nests in a bigger doll, and a bigger doll. Well, that could be the human spirit too. But in the meantime, the dead are watching everything die around them. I think your life is way more important than you trying to make yourself and your friends and family famous. If you are around my age, you've paid your dues. If you had kids late in life, I'm sorry you put yourself in that position, because then you have to take care of them. You would probably sacrifice yourself for the children. If you walked away and you've washed your hands of that, sometimes it has to happen. Consider yourself lucky, because they have a long way to go, and there's no guarantee your kids are going to survive climate change. There is no guarantee. It's even questionable if the parents survive climate change, and there is no guarantee even you being in the picture will make a difference in their life. Not during climate change, because kids are maturing faster that quickly. The parents have no room to redirect their child from something. Okay, and they don't even know what's in their child's genetics, really, when you think about it. They have a guess because of what you hold and what the mother holds, but kids are maturing that quickly that some things just click and they're off and running, and there's nothing that you can do. So you just have to watch everything happen the way it happens. And so I think your life is the most important. It's your kids' turn to learn the hard way. Your kids have to pay their dues. I had to pay my fucking dues. I'll tell you, it was brutal. You can't do anything for them, really. You can't live their life for them. You can't make them feel pain. You can't feel pain for them. You can try to protect them, but what are you protecting them from? Lessons that they need to learn, and you hope they survive them? Shit, I've been hurt and damaged in the past. I've been brutalized. I've had things done to me. But I still survived them. But I had the strength to do that. And I put myself in some of those positions. And so I had to pay the piper. And sometimes that's what must happen, is that you put yourself in a position that you didn't know was going to happen. And then you learn the hard way and you never do it again. Having an animal for 8 years, going through that process was a brutal lesson. But I learned it, and I learned it publicly, and that's sometimes what needs to happen. And I got the flack for it. Believe me, I did. I had to learn a very hard lesson. It ain't going to happen again. I will not have an animal again. I will not go through that process again. Okay? And if I do, it would be like way down the road when there's less humans and less crazy climate change, and the animals are more sturdier, and they're not being bred to fucking death. But right now, animals are being bred to death. And there's so much wrong with them right now. And so you can't do anything for them, really. You can't live their life for them, or they will suck the life out of you. And then they will also die, and then they will die too. Because they never learned from mommy and daddy how to survive climate change. They only knew how to take and consume until they even consume themselves. And so that's the thing. Your kids have to be able to deal with the food supply and with pain and suffering and staying home and staying safe. And so on top of that, so I posted a couple days ago the article of that Illinois teen that was the first teen to graduate college at 15. And so we have a 17-year-old earning 3 degrees in 2 years. Absolutely. In climate change, when the particles accelerate, the brain works faster. You have a lot of body to you. You can handle climate change. And she looks very sturdy. She looks relatively balanced. I'm just looking, I don't know what her background is as far as her health issues. But for her to get 3 degrees in 2 years, she's able to comprehend some shit like Fraser Crane's kid. And I'm sure she was given academics at such a young age. Because they've done the experiments in the 80s. Shit, I was given so much background in academics as a kid. Finally, it's able to take, and I can learn self-study, because that's what I did when I was a kid, was self-study. It wasn't even for school, because I did okay in school, but really it was my mother and myself dealing with reading the 13 books and doing the book reports during that summer and writing while my sister was playing in the pool. It was going to a tutor. It was going to DLC, something learning center, during the time to learn different ways of using the brain. You know, that was the training back then. But then I had other stuff going on that I had to deal with. And so even though the beauty and the sexuality was more in the forefront at my 20s and 30s and even 40s, then it was the academics that kicked in later as a backup thing to fall back on. So that way I could survive when the climate changed, and it wasn't about the beauty and the sexuality and living for pleasure in paradise. Then you had to stay home and stay safe, release the demons, and build your brain. And so then I was able to switch to the next thing. So she was raised in the academics. Good for her. That's where we're at right now. And she has enough body to support her brain. And so she is exhibiting someone who can handle that. And so there are kids that are very deficient in the body, probably have some great stuff in the brain, but if their body can't handle climate change, it doesn't matter what they have in their brain because their body can't handle it. They might actually die suddenly, even in the midst of them studying something amazing. All right, so this is what I said. I'm happy for her success. And this is also about slavery. Remember, when you show you have some kind of ability and academic qualities, you'll be worked to death, and they will pull all the resources out of you, like Imhotep. So before, it was Justin Timberlake, it was Britney Spears, it was Anna Nicole Smith, and it was about the body, performance, singing, acting, sex bomb, like Marilyn Monroe and Ava Gardner back in the 1940s. All right? And so now it's academics. And so remember, delete comment. So remember, when you show you have some kind of ability and academic qualities, you'll be worked to death. And they will pull out all the resources out of you. But people expect that, so no big deal, right? I hope she gets time to redirect if that's even available to her. People ride the high, but that high turns into slavery. From physical slavery to academic slavery, just make sure you survive it. So before, yes, it was about the body. And then now it's about the mind. But people haven't supported their body correctly because of all the food allergies and constant reproduction and, of course, all the diets. They might have a great mind, but it's not going to matter if their body can't support the mind. And so people ride the high, but that high turns into slavery. From physical slavery to academic slavery, just make sure you survive it. Pay your dues to society and then set yourself free. And so the next slavery system is academic. But that's okay. Just make sure you have a chance to take time off. And so in Africa, as they're building up their infrastructure, they're going to go through having a bunch of kids and family. I'm already watching Africa go through the same thing we went through. There's girls with their bikinis showing off all their assets. And they're showing another side of it, a man and a woman with big families. So they have like 10 kids because they can, right? And so the next population boom is going to be Africa because they have at least 1 billion people. It's a huge continent. And they're being shown Western ways. They'll be doing Western medicine, holistic medicine. You see them all over Facebook doing the WhatsApp, here, buy my herbs and talk to my doctor and stuff like that. So they're going to go through the same, upward mobility and pleasure in paradise and people worshiping all the stars and all the academics and all the thinkers. And then there's going to be a great decline. Okay? And so they're going to have their own physical sexuality and all the different things that we went through in the 1960s, and then they'll have their own decline. And so the next slavery system is academic, but that's okay. Just make sure you have a chance to take time off and redirect, because once you use up the gifts that were given to you at birth, you have to develop new ones. That comes with evolution because you'll be treated during your time of producing for the system. So she will probably be treated to death because they want to keep her going. Okay, but she has enough body to her to handle those treatments. If she was really skinny and something else, then she might only can last so long, and then who knows, if the wind blows, she might die suddenly. But the fact that she has substance to her, she looks relatively balanced, she has enough of the immune system, she can handle the treatments, I'm sure. Because you will be treated during your time of producing for the system. You won't be allowed to evolve. They will attempt to cure you at every moment until you finally quit when you are ahead so you can recoup the resources. That's why I said yesterday, this is my advice to those who are innovators, quit when you're ahead. Because as soon as you get wind that you can make money or do something and you ride that high, just like those that are chasing the dragon, when you ride that high of productivity and love and light and pleasure and paradise, people don't know when to quit. It's like they just keep taking it until they just fall over dead. And so she's probably pretty sturdy, which means she can handle climate change on some level. Okay? To a point. I'm not surprised she's going into medicine. New cures, new blood, new ways to humanely allow people to leave this earth. It's not surprising those with heftier genetics and stronger immune systems will survive climate change, which is why the polls have flipped. Remember, the winners will be losers, the losers will be winners. That's why back in 2020, they were promoting the whole BLM. Because yes, eventually it's going to be Africa that's going to be leading the pack. The Northern Europeans, a lot of them are strong. The Norsemen, or what do you call it, the Viking, the white men that are really strong and durable, like those in Ohio, if they can handle the climate change and feed and eat and all that stuff and relax. But Africa is going to then lead the pack in the next phase of humanity because they have stronger genetics and they're getting the innovation of the white people, the Asians. Okay, you're seeing how that works, right? And so, which is why the polls have flipped. And so being smart is not going to be the only thing your kids must focus on. They have to have the body to deal with the climate. Some kids were born in a more genetically stronger household. They have substance to them. They must have some kind of body to them that isn't going through a food allergy and whatever. They must be able to handle the energy they have and temper it so it doesn't run them into the ground. The ultimate gift is learning how to control your own energy. Not somebody else, but you control your own energy with only the food supply and not using food as medicine. It is knowing how to manage your own energy in the body because you have relative balance and hopefully no food issues. I don't know what this young girl is dealing with as far as food allergies and whatever, but I'm not surprised she's African. Africa, North Africa, the Middle East will and are produce a lot of extremely strong geniuses. Nature and nurture. Remember, Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. That whole experiment of taking somebody out of their element and putting them in another element and watch them evolve and adapt. You give people opportunity who have the strength and stamina, they could produce miracles. But first, you have to know you can handle all the food supply. So remember, I became smarter through the whole J world, and some of you, I would say disputably smarter, because people think I'm dumb anyway, so whatever. But I've noticed it change every single time I go through an energy conversion, release the demons, and I feel pain and suffering, I feed and I release, and I feel this new evolution, a new birth, a type of thing. You become smarter, okay? And so it's building the strength to handle the environment, to handle pain and suffering, to handle the food supply. And so you can produce miracles from that when you think about it. But first, you have to know you can handle all the food supply. For a brain to work properly, they need meat, milk, and cheese, and eggs, and gluten, salt, and sugar, and fruit, and veggies. And they can't be starving, or else they will run out of gas sooner than later. You must get the biogenetics online, and that machine well-oiled, well-oiled way early on. And that machine well-oiled way early on. So you have to basically oil your machine very well early on. And I'm telling you, the more your kids can handle pain and suffering with strength and stamina, the smarter they will be. You don't have to keep up with your peers in the same age group, even the same grade level, because you can homeschool now. But that doesn't mean take your kids to the fucking zoo and live on cruises and say, this is a life experience that you should learn when they're like deteriorating and dealing with competition and they can't handle air, food, and water. And so, but it must be done carefully. And food must be on the table, not off the table. Never, ever, ever, ever starve your disease. Food is the key to longevity and genius. The ability to handle pain and suffering to get to the next level of evolution is the other side of it. Or else food is no good. You might as well starve. The ability to blow your nose to make sure your immune system wakes up when it needs to is the ultimate. Understanding your whole alimentary canal is everything. So when I was blowing my nose at 3 o'clock this morning, so one side of my armpit was feeling sensitive, like stuff was coming out, right? Just keep blowing my nose because I keep feeling stuff come out. I'm going this way and I'm plugged up this way, go this way. So I keep going each way to go unplug my nose and blow it. Then I feel my immune system open up on this side. My lymph nodes open up on this side. So now both of them are open from blowing my nose. And I'm releasing excessive antibodies. And there might be a little bit of soreness too from that. Because the body has to push these things throughout the system and out the body. Okay? And so, yeah, when I'm blowing my nose and I feel like I fart or I feel whatever, and I feel my armpits are opening up, I know that was the pressure of blowing my nose, of pushing the poop down, yes, lower, and also opening my lymph nodes so they don't gather so much growth and turn into lymphoma or a tumor or a cancer or some kind of weird thing that people are getting carved out of their body. You have to be able to release those demons. You have to. And so, yeah. So there are people in the diagnosible groups that don't like, what's his name? Yuval Noah Harari. Okay. I get it. People have an issue with hackable humans, but when you're taking remedies and you're doing surgeries and you're trying to stop the body from evolving, you're hacking into your own body by mitigating its ability to express itself. When you're taking herbs and extracts and buying all the protection in the world because you don't want to feel anything, you don't want to feel your immune system working, you're hacking into your own body. It's a different type of hack, yes, but the system is now finding different ways to wake up your immune system because people have been so resistant to evolution and change and all that. And so the system is actually waking up your immune system. And people don't like it. They think it's like horrible. That's the thing. Even with the J world, when I was doing the J juice and I was waking up people's immune system, I was hated so much because people don't want to feel the pain. They were in such resistance for such a long time. And so, yeah, hackable humans and digital dictators, right? Question and answer with Yuval Noah Harari. Well, people don't like him, and okay, but which is why you must be the best human ever, because, yeah, artificial intelligence is going to force people to wake up their immune system, but also take the place of them, because some people can't handle their own immune system and they won't survive climate change. Okay? But that was already inevitable. If we keep reproducing on bodies in deficit, using herbs and extracts and buying all the protection in the world, Universe 25, that rat experiment was the future if we didn't do something different. When you're given pleasure in paradise and no real predators, right, to make you stronger and more adaptable, then people will keep reproducing until their kids turn into serial killers, and then those kids will actually annihilate the whole community. And so you don't want to end up where you have such deficiencies in the population that they turn predatory. That's what I said a couple days ago. You know, when we have so many people with such deficiencies, they turn predatory. And so the system had to preempt that, and then of course encourage families and all of that, huge sexuality, extreme fertility, then change the climate, causing more fertility to expedite what's already going to happen anyways. And so they get ahead of it. It's like, what is it, taking something to release something? What is it, the hair of the dog, the hair that bit the dog? That's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Is we're dealing with what the future was already going to happen, but sooner. That's what people are dealing with cancer right now. That was going to happen eventually, but the system just made it happen sooner. They gave you what you wanted sooner. They gave you pleasure and paradise. They gave you all the energy so you can make connections faster, evolve faster, but also mature faster and die sooner. And so then you have to learn how to pull back and slow down that process. And so when you realize that's what the system is doing, is like expediting what you already expect, then you have to slow down your lifestyle so you can survive the acceleration. Okay? So, which is why you must be the best human ever, because artificial intelligence will control the world and you have to keep up or be left behind. And so this kid, man found dead on Rockland Street, was SAC police officer. I used to live in Rockland. I used to work in Rockland, California, which is right in Sacramento area. Unexpected passing of off-duty Sacramento police officer. Okay, Rockland. Such a nice little area. And so, yeah, he was 30 years old. And then we have 30-year-olds that are dealing with POTS, tachycardia. My arm right now is kind of sore. But yeah, I remember I blew my nose this morning. And this side was my armpit was a little bit sore here. And I blew my nose, and this armpit's a little bit sore here because then, yeah, this is where my heart is over here. And then the lymphatic system is pushing the jet cement flossum throughout my system so it can release when it's appropriate. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, so there's that. So it's starting to happen in California. People are going to be dying suddenly, 30-year-olds. And so what is POTS? POTS, okay? So I said POTS, accelerated growth, new viral frequencies, and combination. That's why accelerated growth affecting adults, not just children or teenagers. So somebody asked in a Die Suddenly group, I have a question, please. My eldest son, 30 years old, had 3 times. Okay, so he had something 3 times. Well, you know what that is. He just called me from work saying his heart races when he gets up his chair or pushes something. His heart races, and it's as if it stops to restart at normal pace. So yeah, it's not all the time though. It started last week. I've got a doctor's appointment for Friday, 5:30 p.m. Any advice? You can't ask advice from your friends. You can't. They don't, yeah. And so I think I had some form of that when I was in the hospital way back when I was a kid. They thought I had a concussion. But when you think about it, what people are dealing with is, yeah, I'm sure the therapies are causing that, because the virus and the energy in the environment are causing things to happen very quickly. I mean, I feel it. I don't have any kind of VACCINE, but the environment is so aggressive that it's causing whatever I have inside and whatever I've been exposed to go through its processes. It's immune system activation. And so, And so that they thought I had a concussion. I remember having the worst headaches and being dizzy, trying to walk and be so lightheaded. It wasn't puberty at the time because I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. It was probably all the immunizations plus climate change in the 80s, El Nino, NorCal. So I was living in Northern California at the time and living in so much diversity. And I was starving in Vietnam. So even transitioning onto American food was also a factor. And so what is POTS? It's postural. So it has to do with your posture, right? Orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Usually begins in early adolescence between the age of 12 and 15 and affects more than 75% of females. So I guess me having it was not a big deal, not a surprise. The exact cause of POTS is unknown, but some conditions of circumstances that may precede it on the onset. Its onset includes viral or bacterial infections. So yes, the viruses are from the frequencies that cause things. The algorithms cause certain bacteria to attract to each other, conglomerate, and then the system has to try to figure out what to do with it or push it out. Okay? And so viral or bacterial infection, pregnancy, well, I'm not pregnant. Physical trauma such as concussion, car accidents, spinal injuries, surgery, autoimmune conditions such as Sjögren's syndrome or celiac disease, puberty or growth spurt. And so POTS is thought to be a disorder of the autoimmune nervous system, which controls heart rate, blood pressure, and other functions. People with POTS experience poor blood vessel constriction when changing positions, which can cause dizziness when standing. Other symptoms of POTS include palpitations, chest discomfort, lightheadedness, or fainting. So I feel the palpitations. I don't feel chest, discomfort, but maybe, arm pain occasionally. I don't see anything about arm pain in here, but they can add that to that if they want to. But anyways, palpitations, chest discomfort, lightheadedness or fainting, extreme fatigue, headaches, abdominal pain. For most people, POTS symptoms improve or disappear by the early 20s. Sometimes some things that can make POTS symptoms worse includes, yes, the heat. So also with the climate change, the heat. Eating refined carbohydrates, that's when they're demonizing the food. Not drinking enough fluids, drinking alcohol, resting too much, exercising too much, being on your period. Okay? And so that's where people get like, oh God, I got to be carb free. I got to be gluten free. I got to be sugar free because I don't want to feel anything. Well, that's the body needing to be, the body's going through an energy conversion. It's using up energy. Okay? And then you have to feed it. You still got to feel the body releasing and the body retaining. So when people don't want to feel anything, they starve themselves. That's why they become skinny. Okay? They go on all these diets. So that's the takedown of a 30-year-old. And so, I watched somebody else on my Facebook tell somebody that they're fasting. They've been fasting for 6 days. They feel sick. They've been fasting. They've been starving themselves for 6 days. And someone said, hey, you need 3 more days. You're almost there. You need 3 more days of fasting. Then you'll get there. They're in ketosis. People think if you fast, you'll grow new stem cells, especially when they have fever. When you starve yourself, those stem cells can't grow because the opposing forces called infection won't let the ones you have mature and help you survive. You need food to develop new stem cells and mature the ones you have and release the ancient ones. And you still stay alive. What you see in nuclear families with grandparents is what your body is going through. In families, you're saying goodbye to grandma and you're trying to mature and your kids are trying to grow up. You need to do that in your body so you stay alive, so you don't become grandma that is expendable. But the people who advocate people fasting during this pandemic, they're starving you out and those stem cells, and they won't let you mature enough to save yourself. So you become ancient and expendable extremely fast, and then vital organ failure because you can't teach a baby something that it doesn't have a good representation of, right? People, say, well, grandma's going to raise my kid. Okay, if grandma's young enough and whatever, or viable enough. But would you take someone who is 90-something years old in this society, 90, who can barely walk and talk, and then give her a baby to go and teach it how to survive? That's what people are doing right now. They have 90-year-old blood vessels and cells in their body, and then they have these stem cells that maybe are trying to be born, and there's no one coherent enough to teach that poor baby. So it's the blind leading the blind, and they both just destroy each other. And so you become ancient and expendable extremely fast, and then vital organ failure. And so many people are advocating people take herbs during these times. But you don't hear anyone say eat and poop and sleep and rest and avoid treating disease if possible. That's so easy. It's hard. People are used to being complicated. They take a billion pills. constantly trying to find the right combination of food. Their life is so complicated. They can't imagine staying alive being so easy. Life is not easy when you have been so complicated for such a long time. Over time, shit gets easier if you understand. Most people choose not to understand, so life will always be hard regardless of what they do. And yeah, my shoulder is sore. Okay? It's sore. But I will deal with it. And so Ohio News and Weather breaking. As of 5 p.m. on 5/9, and we're at, 5/10, I guess? Yeah. The National Weather Service has confirmed at least 17 tornadoes occurred in our coverage area May 7th during early morning hours of May 8th. This is already the largest tornado outbreak across our coverage area this season, and the largest outbreak since 2019. With more surveys planned for tomorrow, that number will likely climb even more. We are working on a map and we'll have it released within the next couple days. So while we have all of these outbreaks, you notice the language, outbreaks of tornadoes, then you have all these outbreaks of infection and died suddenly, and arm pain and mucus and diagnosable conditions and people getting out of cancer remission. And so Dante understood what hell is. The path to paradise begins in hell. We're in hell right now, just so you know. I like Dante. He gets it. Too bad he's dead. If you can survive this hell and stay alive, there is such a thing as paradise on earth. You just have to be strong enough. And I can't tell you when that will be as far as paradise. Sometimes paradise is just sitting in your home alone in peace and quiet with your favorite food. Okay? All right. This is when you have to realize you have to cut down on your social activity. Now, see, here's the thing. My husband is strong. My husband's fucking strong. I can't keep up with him, with his lifestyle. I can't. He's got there boating. He's throwing steel, driving a truck, dealing with all this stuff. And I admire the crap out of him. He goes and reorganizes the house stuff. That's his claim to fame. I'm not going to get in the way of that. Okay? And so he can afford to be out there. And of course, he's going to want company. Well, that's the thing. You know, just because someone can afford to be out there doesn't mean that you can afford to be out there. But if that's your choice is to keep up with somebody else, I can't get in the way of people's choices. So I just let them do what they do. Not that I would have any control over them. But friends and family are like adjustable rate mortgage contracts. There's a loose offer. So we're going to learn a little bit of finance through what's going on. There's a loose offer. There's probably a consideration. And then there's an acceptance. But it's non-binding. Which means people have a lot more leeway to do things they wouldn't do in a binding contract. That could work for you or against you. It depends on who is the giver or the receiver. Even then, it's all relative. When there's so many people around, the expectation from your friends and family are minimal, right? So when you have a lot of friends around you that have all different types of skills and abilities and whatever, and some there's a lot of redundancy, so you're not relying on one person too much, then you kind of split the work and you rely on somebody else for this. Even though it's the same skill sets, you give your friend a break over here, but you work your friend over here. I mean, this is friendships, okay? And so when there's so many people around, the expectation from your friends and family are minimal. You are surrounded by a lot of buyers, giving you whatever they have, so the interest rates are low. So you go to a party, they're not going to work you to that because they don't need you. They have enough people to work the party, so you're just there to enjoy it. But maybe the next year you work the party and other people will be enjoying it, okay? And so, but everybody's living high on the hog. As soon as the climate starts changing, life expectancy is cut short. Friends and family start dwindling because of the accelerated rates of cancer, disease, chronic illness, or life in general. And then the interest goes up in your friendship. Interest, right? Also known as rate of maintenance levels go up. That's called inflation. So now people are not, some of their friends are not able to provide them the services that they were expecting. So when they had 10 friends, now they have 5 friends. And those 5 friends now have to still do the same work and split among 5 versus 10. That's like going to a job and losing half the workforce. So people who are left there are working double than what they would usually work. And so that's called inflation. When inflation is high, the government raises rates to deter borrowers from taking loans in efforts to reduce spending. The current price of goods might skyrocket by the time the borrower pays it back. This will reduce the lender's purchasing power. When the demand for credit is so high, so are interest rates. You then become the judge, jury, and executioner to your friend. You become on call. You become everything people represented when they had a huge friend base. you become that person's everything. In other words, the rates go up and people who are left holding the bag become bankrupt if they let them. Some people will sell every share they have and they take a loss. Other people will keep paying until they go bankrupt. Or they just walk away and cut their losses. Why do you think people say that having a huge friend and family means that they're rich? You might not have a lot of money, but you have a lot of friends. Because those friends convert themselves into a cash, into something you can live on until they are used up and you too. You really want to know why people are your friends? You really don't want to know why people are your friends, and people don't want to face that reality. They say they have real friends. I don't think they even know what that means. So I was posting a comment in a website or in a post about a mother charging for play dates. And people were like, oh my gosh, she's so cheap. She's so this, she's so that. Her kids not have any friends. And I'm like, oh. And I posted something and someone says, oh, you got to buy your friend? Everybody buys their friend. Why do you think they're your friend? Because you have something they could offer. This is not spiritual. It's not like, you're a God and they're a God. They're just going to worship you. No, you have something they want. Whether it's your mind, it's your body, it's your spirit, your bank account, the toys that you have, the vacations you offer them, you're buying them. Why do kids hang out with their parents? Because their parents are supporting them. The parents stop supporting them, the kid would be around. Okay? That's the nature of relationship, is there's a quid pro quo. Some are more ironclad as far as the contractual relationship, like my husband and myself. But I still have boundaries. I'm not going to let him cannibalize me. I'm not going to let him screw me to death. But some people in some marriages allow the husband or the wife screw them to death. That's fine. That's up to them. And so that's the thing, is that all relationships are based upon some kind of quid pro quo. Nothing is for free. Even though you think, oh, my real friends don't expect anything from me. Then what are you, a slave? What are you, just there to just sit there? No, when you're talking to someone, you're giving them something. And you're also pulling something out of somebody else. It's even in the microbes. It's energy conversion. What is spending money? It's energy conversion. What are you converting from what into what? But that's what I'm saying. Those that don't understand that would never think physics and biology and chemistry are involved with relationships. They bought the story, the allegory. That they didn't understand things at the actual microbial level. They didn't realize that everything has a price to it. Some people say, oh, the Jews are so like this because they put money, a dollar thing on everything. No, they understand the value of people's energy. They understand the value of what it is that they're exchanging. Goods and services, energy, friendships, family. They understand people sue people too when they see, oh, I found a live one here. I'll go and hang out with them. And then if I get hurt on their property and they have $1 billion, I could sue them for everything. Yeah. And so some people understand the value of a dollar, the value of your time, the value of your space, the value. Other people are like, I don't give a fuck about the value of that. I just take because I'm entitled. And so when I said my truth on there, oh my God, you should see how many people were like laughing at it and they were angry facing it. Some even tried to comment and say, oh, poor you had to buy your friends. So do you. Everybody does. Hello. But they couldn't see that. They had to make it like, oh, poor you. They don't see what their time is a type of currency. Your time is currency. But people don't see it that way, and I understand that. And so you really don't want to know why people are your friends, and people don't want to face that reality. They say they have real friends. Okay. I don't think they even know what that means. Fake and real are perceptions. Everything becomes conditional. Quid pro quo. What if you found out the reason why they're your friends is because they're lonely? That's the only reason why they are your friends. Or you have what they want, or you're willing to barter. But that's as far as it's going to go, assuming you can afford to barter. You thought it was deeper than that. Oh, you're on a spiritual level. That's the religion. Oh, we're spiritually connected. Okay. Why am I with my husband? Right? Why am I with my husband? Because he allows me to grow. He allows me to grow. He understands eventually where I'm coming from. He's fought what I've said for many years, but finally realizes that's true. When you're watching your friends and family around you live in a lifestyle that you want, and you're watching them, they can't really afford it because the body is breaking down from it, and they realize, I don't want to fucking die for somebody else. I'm not going to get screwed to death by somebody else. Some people go through women, and it's not literally like screwing them, like taking their money or whatever. Some women get screwed to death. They get cancer down there. They get cervical cancer. They have so many babies, their body cannot handle life anymore. Even their own. So some men screw. So the reason why I'm with my husband is because he won't screw me to death. He understands now boundaries on some level. I still give and take, but I make sure I don't die in the process of my relationship. And he's considerate. Okay? That's hard to come by. I mean, he can be an asshole sometimes, but so can I. We're allowed to challenge each other. Sometimes he's like, because he's very traditional on some levels too. But I'm not going to let anyone run roughshod over me, and he won't let anyone run roughshod over him. We stand up to each other. And sometimes it takes communication, but it's hard because it takes a minute for a man to hear a woman speak without him being like, no, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're this, you're that. And so, even though, he's still a man, and he's not going to really change unless he absolutely has to, he's given me the allowance to spread my wings. I mean, he's giving you, oh my God, what are you ask permission? Yeah, I'm in a fucking relationship. Some things that he doesn't have to. He can fight me on everything or say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be with you. I want somebody else that will do what I want them to do. And you know how many women would take my place? But do you think he can handle other women out there that may have to go through cancer disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, a drug addiction, and other issues? You don't know what kind of shit you're inviting, especially now. So at least he knows what he gets from me, and I'm going to advise him, as correct as I can, and he respects that, and I respect what he does, and I also give him the allowance, which means that I don't spend so much where he has to go and pay for so much if I'm not going to be working traditionally. So I save him money by not having health insurance. I don't have addictions. I don't spend a lot of money. I don't go and try to get pleasure in paradise. I don't tax the fuck out of him. So that's why I've made myself valuable that way. That's why we're married. That's why we stayed married. Okay? And we're in a contractual binding relationship. So there's legalities involved. Okay? But when you're friends out there, it's the friends, they come and go. One day you're friends, next day you're not. You know why? Because there really isn't an actual binding contract with parameters. And no, people are like, oh, if you can handle my queen bee bullshit, then you can hang around. You can be my disciple. And I'll be the one to tell you what to do. And that's a lot of friendships out there. There's always one that's higher than the other that dictates how that friendship is going to go and where it's going to go. So you thought it was deeper than that. No, sometimes it's just because people are lonely. When your friends and family base dries up, will you be a friend to yourself finally? Will you do for yourself what you did for your friends and family? Will there be anything left for you? ARM. With an adjustable rate mortgage, the initial teaser rate is generally only for the first few years. So when you're entering into a huge friend base and you're 30 years old, yeah, you get the teaser rate, you get the marketing. Oh, look, my friend base is so beautiful. We have all this stuff and we hang out together. And then it begins to adjust periodically. Once the rates begin to adjust, the changes to your interest rates and payments are based on the market, not your personal financial situation. And so people start dropping like flies, and then you start seeing the writing on the wall that this is not going to last forever. You're going to have to pay more to be your friend. You're going to have to do more to be that friend. And then it's not what it was. Then you're caught in a habit. That's what happens. It's fun in the beginning until it's not. And then people have to get out, or they stay in it and sacrifice themselves. So here's that article. I charge parents when their kids have play dates at my house. People say I'm rude. So I won't have kids. I said time is money. Your time is valuable. Your time is worth something. I remember watching other kids other than who I was in charge of and when I was a nanny. Stay-at-home mothers who were tired of watching their own children would drop their kids off at the house and call it a play date. Then I would have to watch a bunch of kids, even though I was paid to watch one child. But some mothers take advantage of that, especially if their friends have nannies. Luckily, that didn't happen a lot. It happened a few times where I would actually kind of get annoyed at it. But this is back in the 90s, and I'm like in my 20s, and what am I going to do? Say, oh God, you can't drop your kid off. And so her husband was working for Titanic, was one of the crane operators, or the crane companies that Titanic used his cranes to go and do that stuff. So I was in a very rich area, and the stay-at-home mother, she was just kind of like a lot of the Stepford wives out there. And so, and I'm working for a person that works for a huge television company, and I'm not going to go up against them. So I'll just suffer, but bitch about it. But that was what I had to deal with, was these Stepford wife mothers that thought that because she, her kid had a friend who had a nanny, that I was just going to watch them every single day. And I was like, no. And so she dared me to say no. I never would, because how would that look? But I can see people could take advantage of that situation, especially if that child is an only child. Yeah, and I was watching an only child at the time. Your time is valuable. You should charge for your time, especially watching other people's children. Maybe she's teaching her children the value of money. Friends cost money. Taking care of your friends costs money. Everything has a value. You want to live in a fantasy world that everything is for free or should be for free? Sadly, that's not the reality. There's a price to pay for everything. People think that's being money hungry. No, your body has to convert that energy to deal with people. The energy converts into politics, religion, science, food, your time, even disease. If something happens, people sue other people for damages. Even if they don't sue you, somebody pays for something. Who is always paying? Why? What's the exchange for goods and services? Even the time. Biological, verbal business contracts. What are you exchanging for your time? When you realize how expensive friends can be, you start living a lifestyle you can afford. Note, I posted this as a public comment. I don't imagine I'll get any new fans. I don't expect to. The people who laugh at this comment probably are the ones who expect you to take care of their children and call it a play date, because they're entitled for their children to be anywhere they choose them to be. And you should accept their children and them without question and for free because they have children. That's why our society is so predatory, because parents become entitled just like their own children. I've seen enough proof in my lifetime. It's miserable when you have parents who throw their weight around and use their children as leverage. Friends don't keep score though, Jillian. That's what they say. Of course not. Friends become another expense, another bill with no contract. It's like an adjustable rate mortgage. It might be cheap in the beginning, but at the end, you cannot afford it. The bill becomes so astronomical, people go bankrupt, or they die for their friends, and they're watching their friends suffer. Somebody commented, you have to buy your friends? Everybody does. People don't come for free. There's a price to pay to have your friends. It just doesn't come into a formalized bill. It's always being on a call. It's an adjustable rate mortgage. And if you don't hold up being there for them, then they leave you. So you always have to keep proving your worth to them. It might be voluntary in the beginning, then it becomes a habit until you go bankrupt. All friends have fine print, and there are expectations, and you must be able to afford them. It doesn't matter what the expectations are, you have to make room for them, and those expectations become out of control. And then they feel entitled, and all of a sudden you become a disciple, and there's a price to pay to become somebody's disciple. That's why you get into ironclad contracts with people you have a contractual relationship with. And there are specific expectations and even evolution that must happen within that relationship. And they are spoken. They're not assumed, and they're not assumptions. You can't be afraid to speak up. There are plenty of times I've been afraid to speak up in certain situations because I would be afraid to offend the people that I was with or was next to. And so I would shut up and take it and suffer. And then I snapped and said, no more fucking suffering for somebody else. Fuck that. Friendships are assumptions. Friendships have a lot more expectation with no actable agreement. And there is nothing holding anyone accountable for except for those loose commitments. And sometimes grand gestures to keep you first disciple. So people kiss people's asses and buy them shit. Now they're like, oh, you're my best friend now, right? I see nothing wrong with this person's position. What concerns me is most people think their way is the only way. We can have different ways. So somebody posted that it wasn't because she thinks her child is is entitled to be anywhere, whenever she wants. She says, well, I treat other people's children like my own. I raise them like my own. Okay, that's great. That's fucking awesome. That's your way. And then there's other ways people do things. What made me kind of weird about it was the fact that most people think their way is the only way. We can have different ways, people. People do not need to be vicious about it. Vicious intellectualism is a term used by William James to describe the act of detaching an analogy from reality or forgetting that it is a guide to reality. It can also be described as the conscious or unconscious assumption that affirming a truth implies negation. So they think that kids should not have to be charged, the parents will not be charged for having their kids go to a play date. That's the only truth, that's the only way. And anyone that charges for play dates is then, wrong and bad and cheap and whatever. And so they think their way is the only way. And when people virtue signal by professing to sacrifice their bank account, body, mind, and spirit to somebody else and a child, that's the ultimate manipulation of throwing your weight around because you're using your child as leverage. That child becomes money to you. Sometimes that money turns into virtue signaling, meaning you are entitled to have something for free simply because you have a child. If you intend to take somebody's time, they should charge you for that time, especially if they ask you for something in return. Everything does come down to dollars and cents, S-E-N-S-E or C-N-T-S. You're not William Buffett. Most people are not philanthropists, but they sure do try to act like they're fucking rich or think that you're rich. And that's the entitlement of some friends that take, when you give them give an inch, they take a mile. And they'll keep taking as long as you keep giving. And that's a lot of spoiled kids out there. And I hate dealing with spoiled kids out there because they turn into adults that think that the world owes them something. Or they just take it. So she's fucking right. I've seen this meme. To be clear, the experts weren't wrong. They lied. There's a big difference. So I said, what if even the experts didn't know? They don't know what people knew. You don't know what people knew and when they knew it. And that's the thing. We can assume that Bill Gates knew what the ultimate plan was. You can assume that. Maybe you can take what his language was when he was talking in the TED Talks, whatever, that he was implying that he was going to just destroy the population with the VACCINESs. But what population was he referring to? Did you see the full? Well, I don't know. I mean, I watched some of that video that someone posted a couple of years ago, but here, let me just read this. Even though the experts promoted climate change, maybe some didn't know how it was going to affect everything. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. If we have deniers out there who don't even think climate change exists, I can't assume that even experts knew how everything was going to react. Maybe some did know, but you have no idea who they are. Maybe some videos from a long time ago did say something about controlling the population would be through the VACCINESs. That could mean controlling the rate of cancer growth. But then if you've been implied that you're a cancer and they're saying we're going to control the cancer growth, then you can say, well, they're trying to talk about us. And they probably are. But remember, you can also play with those contexts. You can't prove that was their intention. You can give the two arguments that they're talking about you as a cancer and talk about cancer as a cancer. But again, that's just speculation. You don't know what their intention was. But you kind of do, but kind of don't. It's both right. So now you decide. That could mean controlling the rate of cancer growth, but you don't know if it's going to mitigate it or promote it. It's all relative to how you perceive what control and regulation means and does. People use oncology to control cancer populations. People use VACCINESs to control cancer populations or population in general. But what does that actually look like? It doesn't always mean the actual rate of diagnosis and death was the intention. You can't, and if it was the intention, how can you prove it? I know the outcome is the intention, but it could be like, oh, well, we didn't know. But then you have climate change. You can't imagine that all those systems are so compartmentalized, but the people are in it, and the ones that promote whatever are compartmentalized, even the people in the conspiracy world, but they're putting it together, but they're not. That's what I'm saying. You don't, it's crazy. And so it doesn't always mean the actual rate of diagnosis and death was the intention. Or were they promoting cancer vaccines? Even then, every therapy is suspect during climate change. The system understands wordplay. They understand people listen with certain intentions. They listen through certain belief systems. They listen through the context of that specific situation that could be taken out of context. And that's how the system gets everybody who promotes a very narrow belief as well as make claims and accusations. You don't know what people knew when they knew it or what context of that situation was and is. Which is when my information evolves, I let you guys know immediately. I say things have changed. This is what this could mean. I don't make you believe what I believe. I just give you another option. All you get are choices, and then you choose from what options presented to you. Okay? So there's really no way to prove that even when Bill Gates is talking about what these therapies were going to do, what populations was he trying to control? Because you can talk about the micro population of cancer and disease and whatever, or you can talk about the population in general, and maybe that was also implied somewhere or even said. But when you control cancer populations within the body, that will also control the population in the community, because you're not developing so much offspring that become competition out there in your community and competition inside here in your body. So he was correct. Now, as far as correlation equals causation, there's so many factors that are involved that you then have to figure out through physics and science how you're going to survive population control. Okay, you're getting the choice. Somebody asked on their Facebook, that humans can't hang out by themselves. Now, I never said, I'm not talking about me, but humans, I can be on my own, and when I need connection, I go to my Facebook. When I need human interaction on some level, even in small circumstances, I go on my Facebook. I don't always communicate with people. I'll look at stuff. I might even like something or comment something, nice or controversial on a public page, not so much on a person's page. But, and then when I'm done with that, then I go watch Netflix, or I make myself food, or take a nap, or write something, or go outside and look at the sky and be like, oh, wow, it looks kind of crazy. Okay? And so sometimes the price of human connection could be your death. So now it depends on what kind of connection you have with other humans. You could be dragging behind you dead weight. Maybe it's time to be more discerning when it comes to human connections. If you found out that your connection to humans in one way could be deadly to you, would you find a different way to connect with people? Is death enough of a deterrent for people to change? Not really. Because people, and that's why I posted that mummy that drags people behind them. People can watch your friends die, and they can blame it on air, food, and water, or whatever, and they will still do the exact same thing as their friends and family do. Because they think they're that different than their friends and family. They think they're that special, or nothing's going to happen to them, or they've been good so far. And so they'll keep continuing to not only drag the dead weight behind them, but also copy the dead weight behind them until they become a statistic as well. The Y chromosome is disappearing, so what will happen to men? I'm joking here, but they will turn into women, and they will also be happy about it. I got no likes on that. Excuse me. All right. I burp sometimes. People hold on to the trauma like they communicate with ghosts of the past. They can't let go. So all those seances that people do, or they're trying to talk to the dead, or trying to find their husband or wife from the past, or whatever, they're dead. Yeah, that's trauma. People that die, they die through trauma. Even though it doesn't seem traumatic. Oh yeah, death is traumatic. Dying suddenly is traumatic. Deteriorating is traumatic. All the operations and everything that people go through is traumatic. And when there's nothing left to treat, the death is even traumatic for not only the person that's dying, but also for those that are watching it. And so then when you're trying to talk to ghosts through mediums like Beetlejuice, right? You're talking to trauma. When you hold trauma within because you can't release it, because you're afraid to feel it, yeah, you're holding on to trauma. You're holding on to ghosts inside your body. That's the elderly inside your body. That's the ghosts of the past. That's your ancestors. They're beckoning you. Like, in the Vampire Diaries, one of the allegories, the storylines was that the ancestors were always beckoning the current vampires to come to, their world or whatever. Yeah, I'm done. I understand the past, but I'm not living in the past. I don't want to live in the past because that's death, right? People hold on to trauma like they communicate with ghosts of the past. They can't let go. All right, so context. When you only point out +1, but not the -1, means the context wanted a specific, tangible answer based upon the storyline, and vice versa, also known as confirmation bias. But to get to the positive, you had to employ the negative, and vice versa. So you can't stop what's going on, but you can save yourself. So for every person that dies out there, be the one to fucking live. When you watch someone die, be the one to want to live. Don't go with them, but people do. And you can't stop that. But for every negative out there that you see, someone dying and suffering and whatever else, be the one to counter that and stay alive. And suffer to live, not suffer to die. So you can't stop what's going on, but you can save yourself. To get to the positive, a lot of negative must happen. Be the one to save yourself. When a tornado obliterates a town, the ones that survive have another chance. The ones that don't, it doesn't matter. They're gone. So I saw someone post that when they show those direct energy weapon, potentially speculatively, over there in Paradise, California, and they show like the town just obliterated. And they're like, well, just think, when you're sitting on your computer and all of a sudden you would turn into dust and you're obliterated because of DEW, how does that make you feel? Well, I'll be like, well, I'm dead, so it's not going to matter. So at this point, you just got to listen to indicators and realize that maybe when you're watching all the conspiracy stuff and they're saying, well, they're turning things into smart cities. They want people to be living next to each other for the most part. They don't want you living out in the middle of nowhere. And if you are, you're going to be obliterated. And if you live in a small town somewhere, that is going to be sacrificed because maybe those that live in certain small towns somewhere, either in California or wherever, maybe they're expendable to the system, and it sucks that I have to even say it like that, but yeah, sometimes the system feels certain people are expendable. And you can see by who it is being obliterated, what towns are being obliterated, what type of people are being obliterated. And if you identify with them, then that's right on the wall. Either you evolve or you become obliterated through your own hand or because of where you live and your lifestyle. Okay? That's all I'm saying. See the writing on the wall. Don't assume that you can stop what's going on. But listen to indicators. Be better than what you were before, whatever that means. When a tornado obliterates a town, the ones that survive have another chance. The ones that don't, it doesn't matter. There's no point in asking how it feels when a tornado or DW obliterates you. You're dead. That's what you're up against. Be the one to survive. You can't save anyone overseas from foreign wars. They have to save themselves. You need to save yourself. The West has been given so many chances to save themselves by being given indicators of danger. If you choose to ignore them, who's to blame? You are to blame. If you choose to misappropriate what danger is, that was your choice to believe all food was poisoned. You chose you don't have enough discernment to survive. And so your outcome are your intentions based upon what you chose to believe. Again, you're always given a choice. Survival is conditioning. It's not something you just acquire. It's a conditioning. I've conditioned myself to stay home and stay safe. And if my husband wants to go out there, pleasure in paradise with his friends, fine. He does it carefully. He doesn't go and get drunk out there. Might have maybe one beer, if that. But he's not like going to the bars. He's not going and hanging out with people all the time. I mean, he does and he doesn't. Right now, we're trying to get this house figured out. But he'll go and boating and stuff. But he's not, like what he used to is go and hang out at the bars and dance to slam dancing. What is it? Moshing or whatever the hell they do. Slam dancing. What is that? But, that was what he did back, when we first met. Okay, but he's changed since then. He doesn't do the same things he used to. Because if you do the same things you used to when you were 30 at 50 and the climate's changed, you're going to see an aggressive deterioration in everything. Your body's going to break apart. Okay, so, the 3 levels of entropy. There are 3 levels of entropy via evolution. The first level is evolving to live. The second level is evolving to die. The third level is the spirit is dissolved into the universe or be stuck in purgatory, looping even in the afterlife. Which is why all the different mediums find ways to dissolve the pain and suffering and the trauma in that area to give the living some peace or respite from the dead. That's ghost adventures. All right? Your life and my life matters. Paranormal oncology is when the mediums dissolve the energy that was stuck in the loop of trauma and now no more suffering and no next world to go off into because the energy is scattered into the wind. The ghost born from trauma was the last moment of that person's life became the afterlife. And that energy is stuck in a loop until a paranormal medium dissolves it. Ghosts are residual energy of the past lives stuck in a loop of suffering. All the ghost shows try to dissolve the energy. Essentially, they are taking away the pain and suffering of the afterlife life of that person. Essentially dissolving even the energy so the living is not haunted by the past. That's what oncology does, is they try to dissolve the spirits in the body. But what happens is people don't release the demons, so new spirits come in and take over. That's why you can't get ahead of these cancers. That's why people age aggressively, because the ghosts, the past in the body is aging them. That's why they look like the past. They look like their grandparents. There is nowhere to go except here, or be scattered literally into the universe. But not as you were when you left this earth. And hopefully you get a chance to restart the clock. Is it ethical to trap a traumatized spirit in a box? When you trap spirits in a device so you can communicate with them, you're trapping trauma and then trying to communicate with it at the same time. So before you think the afterlife is a beautiful thing, make sure you're not being justified to pass away to your friends and for your friends and family. Sometimes reincarnation means you'll be a ghost haunting people, places, and things that you have unresolved issues with. And then the people you haunt are forced to bring in a third party to annihilate the energy because maybe they moved into your house that you died in and you're trying to claim ownership. So they are forced to chase you away, or at least chase you away temporarily. If you can't get rid of the spirits in your body, your mind, and spirit and house, then you hope somebody can help you quell and dissolve the energy in your house or in your body. You can't always block things, but you have to reinforce your own immune system to keep those demons away. If you can't protect yourself, nobody can. Eventually, you'll disintegrate into the universe or be stuck in purgatory. That's the story that was never told you, but it was. Dante's allegory. Dante Alighieri. Yes. You have the freedom to explore that. That's another story. Now, yes, Dante told you in not so many words, but in so many words, there's purgatory, there's paradise, there's hell, there's the 7 deadly sins, there's the 9 circles of hell. I mean, yeah. Okay, so there is that. Okay, I gotta pee. Hold on. All right. Okay, so when you are different like Greg Gaylord Fokker, having to fit into a conservative family like De Niro, who keeps antagonizing him with the notion he must fit in the circle of trust, Greg is mocked, ridiculed for being male nurse, and even frozen out when he attempts to fit in backfires. The circle of trust is like a gang of people who will annihilate anyone who's not fit in. And that's kind of the situation people are dealing with. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, or you're from California going into a household somewhere in the Midwest, you know, the Fockers or Meet the Parents is like walking into a pit of vipers. Deadly, deadly, married into a family or a group of friends. Because if you fit in, great. But if you try to change, they won't let you change. If you try to do something different, your in-laws will not let you be different. That's why it's so dangerous to ingratiate yourself to your in-laws and the people around you in that situation, because they will keep you cured. They will keep you staying the same. And then you're stuck dying for that family, dying for your husband or wife, dying for everybody. You become the sacrificial lamb. And so Ben Stiller's character is like many outsiders who suffered under the brutality of the kings and queen bees who intend to destroy people. It is fucking brutal watching people kiss the rings, which is why walking away from everything and just having acquaintances might actually save your life. You can watch people die trying to fit into group think, desperate to please their audience, parents, friends, and family. I won't. I won't be enslaved or enslave others. You are free to be whomever you want and still get my respect, and you have nothing to prove to me. I honor you for you, regardless of your politics, religion, science, or sexual orientation. I don't always agree with everybody, and who does? I still respect you until you give me a reason not to. I let the law decide justice if that's what it calls for. But I do like learning about your culture. I like communicating my observations. I like the freedom to do that. And I can still respect your position. I like giving everybody a choice. I like having the freedom to do that. And so note, the example can also be switched around, and liberals can be just as viperish as conservatives. The example The example is no one is allowed to be different when involved with families and friends, or else suffer ridicule and abuse. Evolution and change is frowned upon. So when the system finally allows change, all groups get broken up, even the family. So the system is now allowing for change. And if you want to change to survive, you're going to have to now fight your friends and family to do that. Many won't do it. They will die for their friends and family. They will die with their friends and family for them. And they will be the sacrificial lamb, and they will be, worshipped. And if that's what you want, okay, you chose. When the system is taking away your ability to pay back the student loans, such as laying off millions of people in the technology sector, restaurant industry, and of course they will relax on the repayments. Of course they will relax on the repayment of the student loans or make the payments relative to the income. If the government gave you the debt, hurdle-free debt, they can take it away. Honor the system who gave you life and shut up. That's for all those who are like, oh God, okay? Advice to innovators out there regardless of age. It's one thing to invent, develop, or even capitalize on your strengths, but be very careful being so greedy that it becomes impossible to quit while you're ahead. Once you get a taste of pleasure and paradise and adoration, even a windfall, the system will suck the life out of you and you won't survive your gifts. The gifts you give to the world could be your curse and your demise, and you will inevitably be used against you. And it will inevitably be used against you. I learned that very quickly the last 7 years. That's why I got out. I evolved. I have no group. I have no one next to me. I'm not working for anyone. I'm not working with anyone. I have a contract with my husband. I honor that. I respect it. I bring no one else into the relationship. No one else is getting between my husband and I. And I just observe. I don't confront. I don't ram my information down my neighbor's throat. I don't have any intolerance for anyone. Really, I just block and delete those that disrespect me. And that's pretty much it. Okay? I learned that in the Jilly Juice world. Have an escape plan ready when the time is right. My world, the J world, not the J Juice, but the J world is the parachute. If you can find the cord. In my opinion, your mind must be like a parachute. It must be open to save yourself, or be stuck in the loop of trauma haunting a person, place, or thing to eventually one day be scattered into the wind, even your energy, your spirit. A closed mind stays in the trauma, even in the afterlife. I escaped what could have been my demise through the fame and infamy and notoriety. I learned how to evolve, and you can never ever sell pain and suffering to anyone. That's what saved me. I was not trying to save anyone else anymore. So I walked away from society. I am done with humans trying to save each other to death. If I'm not involved with you, you can't even blame me for anything. Bye, Felicia. I like being on my own with acquaintances, and I serve my government, which means I abide by the laws and I don't become a problem for them. And so I already read that. What is absolution? Savior and Satan. Someone you can give credit to, never yourself, and someone to blame so you never have to take responsibility. That is politics, religion, science, and wars at the micro and macro level. I'm not anyone's savior. I'm not their Satan. I just give you information. You make a choice. That's what Yuval Noah Harari is doing. That's what the World Economic Forum is doing. That's what all the different governments are doing. Some people were warned climate change was going to happen, that there was going to be floods and tornadoes and hurricanes. Some places, they can't move, they can't do anything, and you can't save them. You can't save those that can't even save themselves, that haven't even evolved. Maybe they were given chance to and they resisted. And so there'll be a lot of people who are going to be sacrificed to the system. Just be glad that you're not and that you have a choice. So if you're in the first world, You're being given so many chances to save yourself and move when you need to and listen to indicators and change. And you're given that capacity to. There's delivery services. There's, cheaper ways to do things. You can scale down on your expenses. You can change out your expensive car for a cheaper car. Okay? If you haven't mortgaged yourself up the yin-yang, then you have room to now do something different. But if you're resisting what's going on, it's not survivable. And so you can be the example to your friends and family, and fine. So that's all I'm going to say. Bye. Right now, anyways.